Hey, Shalom, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the nation of Israel, better known as the Great Millstone. Shalom, blessings and salutations to the elect, the 1/3 and the 144,000, and death to 2/3. Couple topics I want to get into, so I'm going to do my best to not bring them all up in this video on the road portion. But I wanted to start here regarding the new moons and the sabbaths. And if you read here in Ezekiel chapter 46, as it's pulled up, it goes into some of these differences, okay? But Salaki, I'm trying to just kind of gather my thoughts a little bit. So, the new moon, what is it? The new moon is the beginning of a month where there is no moon in the sky. This is where you know the beginning of your week and your month, okay? So if the new moon comes in on, let's say, a Wednesday evening or a Tuesday evening, okay, you observe that new moon. And there is a sacrifice that you would make, an offering you would make for the new moon, which would be a bullock. Now, part of this, as you can see in verse 1, I'll read this real quick. The gate of, thus saith the Lord power Yahweh, the gate of the inner court, that looketh toward the east, okay, shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath, or the 7th day, or the day of rest, it shall be opened. And in the day of the new moon, I gotta get over. And in the day of the new moon, it shall be opened. Okay, so right here you can see some correlation between the Sabbath and the new moon. Okay, they're held in the same location, which this would be in the temple. Okay, and the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate, and the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offering. So that's why it says in other verses you've read that the Most High will not smell in your solemn assemblies or in your feast days or in your new moons or your Sabbaths, is because you were essentially what we would call, you were cooking. Okay, you were sacrificing either a bullock if it was the Sabbath, or on the new moon, or a lamb if it was the Sabbath. Okay, and you would burn the offerings, the things that you don't eat to the Most High, so the blood and the organs, the fat. Okay, and you had even when you read Genesis, it talks about, I think it's the right thigh, the joint. You don't eat that out of memorial of when Jacob wrestled the angel. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's in Genesis, and that was something to be observed as well. Okay, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until the evening. So this is letting you know a time frame also. It's denoting a time frame from evening to evening. Okay? It says, likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before the Most High Yahweh in the Sabbaths and in the new moons. So the Sabbath was the 6th or the 7th day, right? So it said for these 6 working days that this room, this court, shall be shut for 6 days, except the 7th, it should be open for the new moon and the Sabbaths. So you know that this is a similar event, somewhat similar event, okay? Kind of like how people describe rims, tires, and wheels. They're the same, but they're not the same. They're associated together, and you know them as one complete item. When someone says, oh, I need to get new wheels or tires, you're automatically thinking of the rubber part. When they say, oh, my rim, I'm going to get new rims, you're thinking of the metal part but those are kind of interchangeable depending on who you're talking to, because that's just how people are. They might call the rim itself, um, the portion of a wheel. Okay, yada yada. I don't want to go on about that, but you kind of get the point. Hopefully, that's a well enough analogy. Okay, so boom, there you go in verse 3. Now, verse 4 it says, "And the burnt offering that the prince shall offer unto the Lord in the Sabbath day shall be 6 lambs without blemish and a ram without blemish." So you see right there, the Sabbath. Now, who can afford this once a week? Shit, I know I can't. Okay, and that's why we rehearse these righteous acts, and it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing. You can't afford this, man. None of us can. And if you can, well, more power to you, but that's still not going to save you. Okay? And the meat, verse 5, "And the meat offering shall be an ephah for a ram, and the meat offering for the lambs as he shall be able to give, and an hin of oil to an ephah." Now, these are just measurements and weights, and off top, I don't remember the exact weights of these measurements, but this is where you would do your independent research and look it up, and maybe something more will come to you. It says, "And in the day of the new moon, it shall be a young bullock," you see, "without blemish, and 6 lambs and a ram." So the new moon is there's one more thing you got to cook or sacrifice, and they shall be without blemish. Now that's pretty hard to do, because you don't know Farmer Ted what he's doing with these poor animals. You see? So keep going. Verse 7. It's pretty much the same thing. "And he shall prepare a meat offering, an ephah for a bullock, and an ephah for a ram, and for the lambs according as his hand shall attain unto, and an hin of oil to an ephah." Okay, and "when the prince shall enter, he shall go in by the way of the porch of that gate, and he shall go forth by the way thereof. But when the people of the land shall come before the Lord in the solemn feasts, he that entereth in by the way of the north gate to worship shall go out by the way of the south gate, and he that entereth by the way of the south gate shall go forth by the way of the gate whereby he came in, but shall go forth over against it." So even if you had a closet for yourself to rehearse these things, that closet has to have all these doors in these directions, man. So hey, good luck with that. What are you gonna do, build a tool shed and put a door on each thing? But still, okay, you got that covered, but what about everything else? Jake wants to talk about the law and this and that, man, but come on. And at the end of the day, the law is not going to save you. The only thing that's going to save you is the grace and mercy if you're ordained of the elect, man. And if you're of the elect, you're going to be doing the things that the elect are going to do, and you're going to have your character and moral fiber about you. Okay, now I'll say this real quick. One brother brought up Colossians, where it mentions judge no man in meat or drink, or in regard of a high holy day, or a Sabbath. I'm roughly paraphrasing. Okay, so you might have a brother in the camp that he doesn't understand the difference between a new moon and a Sabbath, and he may, for whatever reason, may not want to observe it, or maybe he doesn't get it. It's best for that brother to have the understanding that Paul put out. Look, man, don't judge no man. Look, if you don't get it, but everyone else in the body is doing it this way, then you're not built up in the faith yet. Okay? So it's okay. You'll get there. If the Most High wants you to get there, you'll receive it. Maybe you should pray to receive it. Now, maybe you don't want it, but maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's a little sideways. Maybe the guy, he just doesn't want to observe it because he doesn't want to have that spiritual free day, basically, because that's a day of rest, man. That's, if you can avoid doing things, by all means, avoid doing it. If you have the luxury to not go to work and to just rest at home and do videos and just chill out, man, then by all means take that. But if you can't, then hey, you can't, So this is where that judgment, mercy, and faith comes into play. When you're dealing with the law, the weightier matters of the law are judgment, mercy, and faith. You see? Okay, so moving on just a little bit. Personally, I'll say this before moving forward. Personally, for myself, if there was a brother that he couldn't receive it, and he's making a big deal about it, it's like, look, this can go a couple of ways. Either one, brother, like, you got to just calm yourself down because you don't understand it. And if you're not able to, then on these days, you're not allowed to be around the brothers or the camp because it's going to mess you up. So you're going to be on the outside of these things. You're not going to be pulled in for some of these more intimate things that go on through the spirit. And you shouldn't want that. And I'm saying that because the scripture tells you, sometimes you got to separate yourself, that men might be ashamed, but also he's just not built up to that level. And again, Paul did this when he was converting the Israelite foreigners and saying that, look, just abstain from the idols, the blood, and the things strangled. He wasn't forcing down their throat the circumcision, okay? He wasn't forcing these other things down their throat. He was like, look, just break these habits because these are like the worst things you're doing right now that should be in your control or power. And also as a notable, it would be also as a notable observance, because during that time, if you were a Greek or a Roman, like, you had to observe those things. So it was like a worthy sacrifice to, pretty much you're sacrificing your body and your freedom and your life by going against the hard oppression that was put on us to serve these other gods and idols and manner of diets. Okay, so it's a little bit on that. You know what? You can keep reading this, but that's pretty much the point, man. Okay, because this is regarding the new moons and the sabbaths. So, in closing, I want to also say this: if you got a brother and he's asking you a question and you got the answer and you give it to him, and he's still resisting, he's not able to receive it, and he's like, well, isn't there like a breakdown someone else has, or is there a video that an elder or an apostle has done? Bro, if he's not going to believe it from your mouth, why would he believe it from anyone else's? And that also denotes a respecter of persons. And that guy's got a demon on him. And another reason why I would separate his company from myself, if it was me, or even the other brothers, because that he might start trying to heap disciples unto himself and cause divisions. And now some might say, well, are you not causing division by separating them? No, because the scripture tells you, if your eye offend thee, to pluck it out. It doesn't matter who it is or if they're whatever position they are. Look, man, if they're not part of the body, then you got to remove it until you can either heal it or it's just all the way gone. So with that, hopefully it was edifying and it cleared up some confusion for some people out there. Mainly, this is for the elect, okay, to edify the sheep. And for those that don't get it, well, this is just you hearing it and not understanding and not receiving. So in closing, I'll just say shalom.